My editorial discretions cannot totally be divorced from my personal experience or perspective or bias. Yet, can truth ever be totally without bias? In a world that marginalizes Nigeria's contributions to peace within her region and places her on a terror list because of a failed attack on an airplane by one of her youths, and makes the activities of armed bands in Nigeria's Niger Delta the major theme in every discussion about Nigeria, the truth can, at best, merely be a faithful, unembellished, or naked account of a perspective, the perspective that distinguishes whether an individual be called rebel, terrorist, or freedom fighter. This is the Niger Delta in Nigeria, a region flaring with gas and rising tempers, and oil is at the bottom of it. Two types of oil have given so much hope and promise to the peoples of the Niger Delta and the potentially great nation to which they belong. First, it was palm oil that generated a flourishing overseas trade for the good part of the 19th and 20th century. Then crude oil, petroleum, the spirit that moves the world, and propelled Nigeria into the exclusive OPEC club, making an excited military ruler declare that money was no longer the object but how to spend it. Nigeria turned its back permanently on palm oil, even as Malaysia embraced it and has since made a fortune from it. This is Forcados, once described as Island of No Regret or Small London. And there is a new Forcados now, actually Shell's evacuation center for its western zone in Nigeria, serving world energy needs. And although Shell would call it Forcados, for the Izon host community it remains only a vision of heaven. The true Forcados is a few beaches further up the Forcados River. In the centuries when Europe, with African collaborators, carried out their infamous trade in slaves, she was a reluctant bride who also hosted a growing trade in palm oil, panther skins, and blue shell. All that is now history, and the realities of the former status of Forcados can now only be seen from the carcasses of the former colonial structures like the slave post and the sea wall that the locals say was erected by the Portuguese in the 15th century to protect the island in the event of a tsunami. The two protectorates. Today, most Nigerians are not certain whether they want to break or to, but I mean, everybody agrees it will really be stupid after everything that's been invested to even consider possibilities of breaking apart. So what, like the Americans would say, we have our job cut out for us. So really, realistically, what we really must do is to make a nation, to create a nation out of what we have. The topic is oil palava, government wahala, and the core of this, the center of this, is the Niger Delta, where most of the oil comes from. The resultant scenario is one in which there is urbanization but no accompanying economic growth to provide jobs. The Niger Delta holds some of the world's richest oil deposits, yet Nigerians living there are poorer than ever. Violence is rampant and the land and water are foul. What went wrong? The current conflict in the Niger Delta arose in the early 1990s over tensions between the foreign oil corporations and a number of Niger Delta's minority ethnic groups who felt they were being exploited, particularly the Ogoni and the Igbo. That's why, I am saying that it's a great thing that in the Gulf of Mexico, there is a problem right now with BP, because the practices of some of these oil companies, and now as we find, even in countries that exercise control, who are bastions of democracy, who are examples that we wish to follow, we find that if you give room for people to cheat, they would, they will, and they do. Not to talk of in a place where poverty, due to bad governance and all of that, reigns. People cannot talk, and therefore the oil lords reign supreme. And in fact, our nation is held to ransom. The truth is that in the Niger Delta, other gangs have taken advantage of the greed of politicians. Gangs that were hired by politicians for electoral reasons find themselves armed to the teeth, and the politicians find themselves incapable of taking back the arms and redistributing only during electionary campaigns. They have also found, these gangs have also found it very lucrative to kidnap. When this thing started, you didn't hear about kidnapping in Abia State or in Imo State. In fact, it spread as far as to Benin. The problem remains where it is because there is no specific attempt to bring legitimate governance, to advance governance that will bring all the benefits of democracy to the citizens of our country. So sometimes you find that what could have been a blessing easily becomes a problem. Some people say, oil boom, oil doom. That is the place we find ourselves today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.